You might wonder why I'm slicing bagels. Well, everybody has chips, right? And usually they're these chips and they're full of fat. So that's not such a good thing either, especially if you're going to go back and get more and more and more. So how about bagel chips? Bagel chips, just like pita chips, are low fat and or no fat, and they're so easy to make and very inexpensive, less expensive than potato chips, quite honestly. So I've taken a regular plain bagel. You can use a cheese bagel if you like. A plain is probably better because you can do more with it. And I've sliced them about 1/8 of an inch thick. I'm going to put them onto a non-stick baking pan. And then we're going to add just a little spray, vegetable spray on here, not much. That's good. And then you can season them with whatever you like. And that's the good part, because if you want to do some Cajun seasoning on here, give them a little spice, you can do that. If you want to put a little Italian seasoning on here, you can do that. And we're going to bake these in a 375 to 400 degree oven just until they're golden brown and crisp, and they're delicious. And then you can serve them with a low-fat cheese dip or a low-fat dip, or they're just great on their own. Everybody loves mashed potatoes. I admit it, I do too. But considering all that milk and butter that you have to add to make those potatoes taste so good, well, it's no wonder people complain about how the holidays add those extra pounds. Our advice? Well, try herb roasted fingerling or red skin potatoes. Herbs? Just use any herbs you want. A little bit of oregano, thyme, basil, just chop it up, a little bit of oil or spray, you're good to go. People will think you went to cooking school. What I've got here, I've taken some mushrooms, chopped mushrooms, and I've sauteed them in just a little bit of oil, okay? And then what I did is I added some fresh herbs, I added some chopped asparagus in here. You can add any vegetables you want, and it's a great sauce. Let me show you how thick it can be. Now this could be for a steak, or this could be for the top of a roasted chicken. That is a great sauce on top of your meat right there. So you don't have to worry about all that extra fat. Another option you have is just chopped tomatoes. And in this case, you have a marinara sauce. That's all this is chopped tomatoes and a little bit of vegetable, and in this case, basil, a bit of olive oil. These are great ways to sneak in those extra small little bits of your diet that are going to be great to save some weight. So I would recommend vegetable reductions. I would recommend sauce reductions, a great way to thin your diet down. So first of all, what is a crisp? Well, a crisp, an apple crisp in this case, is basically a pie with no bottom crust and a crumbly top crust. And usually people put oats in the top crust to make it kind of a little healthier. And that's what we're going to do today. But we're going to use a version that has just a little bit less sugar, a little bit less butter in it. So I'm going to start out by making that crust. And what I have here right now is 1/3 of a cup of oats. These should be your regular rolled oats, not the quick oats. And to that I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup of flour. All-purpose flour is really better. And 2 different sugars. A little bit of brown sugar, 1/3 of a cup, and a little bit of granulated sugar, 1/3 of a cup. Now it might seem like a lot of sugar, but we're going to put a lot less in the filling. So this is going to be basically the sugar that's going to go right down into those apples and give it a lot of that great flavor. So we're going to basically, I'm going to add a little salt here, I don't want to forget that. We're going to basically take 6 tablespoons of butter, cold butter, and we're going to cut it in like we're making a pie dough. Now this is going to take a little time, and just like when you're making a pie dough that they tell you to cut the butter in until it ends up being like little peas, that's exactly what we're going to do here. We have these little pea-shaped pieces. Scrape all of this off so you can see it. And this is what you want. You want them to be nice and crumbly pieces, like a streusel. So when you put it on top, you see all those little bumps. So we have our topping done. Now it's time to make the filling. Well, of course, apple crisp has apples in it. What kind of apples? Well, I like to use different kinds of apples because each one has a different property, different flavor. I use a Granny Smith, this green one here, because it has a nice tartness to it, and it is a nice firm texture when it's finished. Braeburn apples are one of my favorites. Honeycrisp are quite good too, and then I like to use Golden Delicious. This is probably one of the best pie apples you can use, is Golden Delicious. So I make a medley of all 3, but you can use any one of them that you like. All right, so what I've done is I have gotten myself here about 8 cups of apples, and I've taken each one of these apples and peeled them and cored them. And you can either slice them, or if you want to, you can dice them. It really isn't that important. But you want to have about 8 cups full. So I'm going to take these 8 cups of apples and put them into a large bowl so that I can kind of toss them. And to that I'm going to add the juice of a half a lemon, or about 1 to 2 tablespoons. No seeds. Oh, got pretty lucky, no seeds in there. All right, and to that I'm going to add a little bit of cinnamon. About a half a teaspoon is what the recipe calls for. If you like more cinnamon, you can add just a little extra. Okay, a little pinch of salt. Again, kosher salt is best, or sea salt. Sugar, not much sugar. Remember, we had a lot of that sugar that was in the topping. So we're just going to put a scant third of a cup. That's not much for a recipe like this. And we're going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. Now on the flour part, you can make this an entirely gluten-free recipe if you like by using either potato flour or rice flour instead of wheat flour. And on the topping, you could do the same thing. Instead of the flour that it calls the regular all-purpose flour for the topping, you could use for there the same potato or rice flour. And this entire dish now is gluten-free. Okay, so what is it missing that normally is in our pie fillings? Well, butter. So we're going to eliminate the butter. We've already got a little bit of it in the topping mixture here, so that'll kind of seep down into these apples and give it a little bit of that flavor. So at this point in time, we're just going to toss it, and you'll see that after a few seconds, you're starting to get some juices that are starting to develop, and that's good because those juices are going to make that nice sauce that every good apple pie has, and in this case, a crisp. So I've got this tossed really well, and I've found a baking dish. Now it could be a ceramic one, it could be a glass one like this is, or a metal one if you like, but if it's metal, I would advise you to make it a non-stick one. And we're going to spray this with a little bit of vegetable spray. Any name brand will be good. And we're going to place our apples inside. Now, don't worry if the apples seem to be kind of over the top, because they're going to kind of nest down in, and it will not seem as full when it comes out of the oven, and you'll see that in just a second. So I'm going to kind of pack those in here like this. All right, and now I'm going to take my topping here, and I want to make sure that I cover the apples pretty thoroughly. So spread it around nicely so that each piece of apple has a little bit of topping, and that'll protect it from the heat, because if it's not protected by the heat, you can tend to have a little burn here and there, which isn't too bad if it's just 1 or 2 pieces, but you don't want that to be everywhere, okay? So I've got this looking really nice. It looks very authentic, very rustic, and we're going to put this into a 375-degree oven for about 35 to 45 minutes, okay? If you happen to have a convection oven, you can set the convection oven on, but I'd wait till a little bit later to brown it up. So we're going to put this into the oven, just like that. And I'm going to pull one out in just a second and show you what they look like when they're done. Oh, and it's bubbling. It looks delicious. Check that out. You can see it's bubbling around the edge. That's all of that sauce that's been created from the sugar. And it smells so good. I wish we had smell-o-vision. You'd be able to smell how great this is. So to serve this, just going to carve a little bit out with your spoon here onto a plate like that. And that is just, that's heaven. That's apple heaven. And you can serve that with a nice vanilla ice cream if you like, something low-fat. Maybe a little bit of yogurt on the side would be great with this too. But this is a great dish that you'll love this holiday season.